Well, hello there. Another week. You know, I really try not to beat up the word weather in every fishing report, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the weather this last week. If you were outside fishing in it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Might have been the most beautiful week I've fished in a decade. The entire week was awesome. We started the mornings in 60 some degree air temperature. Humidity wasn't that bad. It was a beautiful week to be on the water. Hopefully, you got out there and chased on a bunch of fish. I spent a ton of time on the water this week in the metro area. A lot of Lake Minnetonka, Chisago chain. Found some consistencies again. Once again, as we found last week, had some pretty good patterns. Continue to show their face, just like we've been doing. So, thought we'd hammer through some of that. Talk a little bit of strategy as we get some more pressure on these bodies of water. So lakes are getting absolutely pounded right now. Lots of anglers out there fishing. There's not a lot of spots you can fish on any of these popular lakes and get away from the crowd. It just is what it is right now. With the weather we're seeing, with everything going on in our world, anglers are out and about going fishing. So the biggest thing is just keep moving, keep a positive attitude. If a bunch of people are on your spot or pull up on your spot, which happens, move on to the next one. I promise you, there's more places to catch fish and chase down some of these cool species. So we've been predominantly bass fishing, chasing down bass on Minnetonka, Chisago chain. The bluegill fishing I'll touch on quick before we jump into bass continues to be very consistent. Weed line stuff, you'll get plenty of bluegills. If you want to catch fish and take the family out and bring some home for dinner, it's not hard to catch bluegills right now. Just get on a weed line and drop a jig or a tiny little jig and a twister tail or a tube or a chunk of minnow or a chunk of night crawler. I mean, the bluegills are biting, they're chowing, and they're eating just fine. So you can get out there and chase down bluegills and not have any trouble catching fish for dinner. Crappies mixed in, walleye fishing for us in the metro. I haven't even tried it, honestly, the last week. We haven't even caught one, even by accident. So not sure exactly what the walleyes are doing. Probably not your guy to ask. Generally, we catch them by accident fishing for bass right now with jig worms and drop shots. We have not seen a walleye come to the boat this entire week. Pike are coming to the boat. They're on the deep weed lines. You can catch those. I think the best way to catch a pike right now is a sucker minnow on a jig. I think you'll catch pike, you'll catch bass, you might catch a walleye, or crankbaits. Deep diving crankbaits, cast reeled in, DT10, DT16 type stuff from Rapala, or trolling the weed lines. I know the pike guides, like on Lake Minnetonka, are struggling a bit. I wouldn't say they're having banner week, but they're catching fish, trolling crankbaits on the deep weed lines. Seems to be a productive pattern. And muskie fishing, we've seen two come to the boat chasing our baits, but we haven't fished muskies. The water temps are warm. You're seeing water in the low 80s by the time we're done fishing. So you're not really seeing the muskie anglers out there fishing like you generally would. So don't have a great report on muskie fishing. The bass, we've been chasing bass. We've been catching a lot of fish. Hasn't been tough to go out there and catch 30 or 40 bass. It's the big ones we're struggling to catch consistently. It's been an off year for that. So you got to get out there and just chase them down. So we have caught a lot of fish on jig worms lately. The jig worm has been king. I'm using an 1/8 ounce chartreuse or green pumpkin mighty head jig from All Terrain. 1/8 ounce seems to be that good versatile size to fish anything from 10 feet out to 24 feet of water, even 26 feet of water. If you need to upsize, you certainly can. If you can get away with the lighter jig because there's zero wind, then I do it. I like to fish the lightest jig worm I possibly can to get the bait down there in front of the fish's face and still feel what I'm doing. If you can't feel the jig, you're going to struggle, and that doesn't matter your skill level. If you can't feel that jig and know what's going on and be down there, it's tough to catch the fish. So 1/8 ounce seems to be that good range of jig that we're fishing. So 1/8 ounce mighty head, I'm fishing it on a jig worm. I'm fishing a 7-inch jig worm or a 6-inch jig worm, and I've been fishing anything from a green pumpkin to a pumpkin pepper to a motor oil to a pumpkin with chartreuse fleck tail. Those have been good baits for me here in the cities, especially on Lake Minnetonka. It'll work well in Waconia. The jig worm's been a great bait to fish. You can throw it on a spinning rod. I'm using a 20-pound braided line with a fluorocarbon leader in 12 to 14-pound test line, double uni knot to attach it, and then I'm tying that jig. I'm probably a 4-5-foot leader, and I'm fishing them that way. Seems to really make a big difference to have that leader because we're fishing some of the cleaner water on lakes like Minnetonka, so that fluorocarbon leader, I think, is important and helps you get more bites. So play around with that. If you're just tying direct to braid and you feel like you're not getting the bites you should, put that fluorocarbon leader on and see if it makes a difference. I fish the fluorocarbon leader on my rod for jigworm fishing, wacky rig fishing, or your Kamita fishing. I fish it on that. You can also fish it on a flipping a jig. I'll use a 40 or 50 pound braid, and I'll put like a 17 pound or even a 20 pound fluorocarbon leader on there if I'm flipping. Or you can go straight braid in the heavy stuff. So jigworm fishing, catching a pile of fish. Drop shot fishing, same exact situation. I'm fishing drop shots in that 15 to 25 feet of water. Same with the jigworm. It's just a different approach. You can drop shot a minnow bait. You can drop shot that same worm. Or what I've been doing is I've been drop shotting a wacky rig. I've been drop shotting a small wacky rig on the same type of cover and situation to get some of these bass to bite. Just a different look. So jigworm, drop shot, same structure that I'm fishing. I like to find that coon tail in that deep water. It's setting up pretty well right now in that 20 to 26 feet of water. You can see it on your electronics. Look at that coon tail. It's just a few feet out the bottom. It's beautiful. The big bass are in that. Or some days we're not catching fish if we're not casting into 8 to 14 feet of water. Again, we're finding that same stuff to hold true. We're either getting them on that 8 to 14 foot range, or you can get them out deeper. I'm not beating up the shorelines unless I'm skipping a dock, or maybe chucking a frog way back into the thick stuff. But that stuff we used to get fish on, that 3 to 8 foot range that we were crushing them on a few weeks back, in my opinion right now is holding smaller fish. So you can get bit, you can throw a wacky rig up there or a swim jig and still catch fish. But I would put the boat, if you want to fish shallow, I would put the boat still in 15, 16, 17 feet, and I'd cast up into it. So you're still relatively in deep water or adjacent to deep water versus on top of a big shallow flat casting around. So make sure the boat's still in deep water, casting shallow, so these fish at least are relating to the deep water, and you have a better shot catching some of those fish. So we did catch some nice fish on swim jigs when the boat was in 16, 17, 18 feet, and on a long cast, we were casting into 6, 7, 8 feet of water because the weeds are a little thicker, that kind of stuff. So if you are going to want to use some of those applications, make sure you're near deep water, not way up on top of a shallow flat. So big fish are still coming off docks. Some of the deep rock bites are starting to show on football head jigs, Carolina rigs, that sort of stuff. And of course, as always, this time of year, you can catch fish flipping a jig. You can be flipping a Grassmaster. You can flip. We caught fish on a 10-inch Mr. Twister Hang 10 worm on a Tokyo rig. Caught a really big one on that, a 415 the other day, flipping that into, kind of an emergent cover in that 12 to 14, 15 foot range. Caught a big fish on that. So you can definitely flip. So the bass bite's good. I think if you're out there fishing and you want to catch fish and have a shot at a quality fish for its specific species, I think the best bite right now is that bass bite. And obviously that morning bite, that 6 to 10 o'clock hours seem to be the best. Midday you start to struggle a bit. Maybe it's time to jump in the water, take a dip, cool off, get a bite to eat, go for a boat ride, grab the inner tube. Otherwise, that prime time is that 6 to 10. And then again in the afternoon, evening, that evening bite, that again 6 to 9 at night when the sun's going down, the fish seem to turn on again. But if your window of opportunity to go fishing is from 11 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, still go out and go fishing because you'll still catch some fish. In fact, that 415 we caught the other day was at about 2:15 in the afternoon, and that's when it bit. For 2:15 in the afternoon, big bite, almost a 5-pounder. So if you get a chance to get out fishing, go out there and chase them down. I'll be on the water a bunch again this next week. Next weekend, my report could be a little weird because I'm not going to be home. I'm actually going to be staying in Wisconsin, driving back and forth to fish some spots and do some guide trips. So if the report next week's a little wonky, I'm going to be doing it a little different, probably off the dock. But I'm going to try my best to get that report to you next week too with some good fishing stuff that's going on this next week. So get out there, have some fun, be safe. Another beautiful weather ahead of us. Beautiful week of weather ahead of us. We're getting spoiled this year with weather. A little rain came through yesterday, Saturday, later in the afternoon here in the cities. Not a soaker, but enough to feel good. And then looks like we got some nice weather ahead of us this week. So get out there, chase down some fish, have some fun, be safe, and we're in August. Welcome. Good luck.